Welcome, dear listener, to Whispers of the Night. Tonight, you're invited to journey into stillness, to a mountain temple where rain whispers gently on wooden rooftops, and each drop feels like a secret passed down through centuries. Let the world behind you melt into mist. There is no hurry here, no need to think, just soft footsteps winding upward through stone and time until you reach the wooden halls where silence lives as the rain begins to fall and the lanterns flicker one by one. You're exactly where you need to be. This story, like the night, was made just for you. Now, find a comfortable place to rest. Let your body sink like a pebble into soft earth. Let your shoulders relax, your jaw, your fingers, even the space between your thoughts. Feel the quiet patter of rain begin to gather around you. Not loud, not cold, just a gentle rhythm, like a lullaby for the land as you breathe in. Notice how the air feels heavier now, not with burden, but with blessing, the way rain does, filling every space with softness. And as you breathe out, let go of all that no longer belongs to this moment. Let go of your lists, your edges, the worries that scratch at the edges of your day. They don't belong here, not in this temple built from time and sky. Here, there is only wood warmed by memory, raindrops writing poems on the roof, and a deep, sacred quiet that wraps around. You like dusk, you are safe, you are welcome. And with every breath, you drift deeper into rest, into the rhythm of the rain, into the story waiting just beyond the curtain of sleep. Gentle rainfall on the temple roof. The first drop on the clay tile. You sit in a quiet garden where silence listens with you. Above, a single raindrop taps the curved tile of a temple roof. It echoes through wood, stone, and memory, a lullaby shaped over centuries, designed for peace. Let your thoughts wander with the storm, slow and sacred. The rain begins with a hush, not silence exactly, but the soft unspooling of sound before sound, a kind of breath the sky takes before it speaks. You are already waiting, seated on the worn wooden floor of a quiet temple veranda. The scent of cedar mingles with cool earth, and your fingers rest beside a cup of tea, steam curling slowly upward like the ghost of something remembered. The roof above you is ancient red clay tiles laid in curved rows, each one shaped by hand and heat, each one placed with care centuries ago by builders who believe that beauty should echo even in the sound of falling rain. You feel it before you hear it, a shifting in the air, a gathering hush in the leaves, as if the garden itself is leaning in to listen. Then the first drop. It lands on the roof tile with a sound so small it could be missed. But here, in this open space where stillness is honored, even the smallest sound is allowed to bloom. It resonates softly through the wood beneath you, passes through pillars of pine and beams blackened with age, and settles into your chest like a pebble, dropped into still water. That single droplet begins a story that has been told for thousands of years. You close your eyes and listen. More raindrops follow, slow at first, like cautious footsteps on a gravel path. Each tap is slightly different. Some land with a rounded plop, others with a sharper tick. Some strike the edge of a tile and slide down, gathering speed before dropping again onto the stone below. You begin to notice their rhythm, not a pattern exactly, but a kind of gentle mathematics, like a drumbeat without urgency, or a lullaby written by water and roof. The shape of the temple roof, its soft slope, its overlapping tiles, its wide, welcoming eaves, all of it is designed not just to shelter, but to sing. Long ago, builders across Asia and the ancient world studied how rain moved through space, how it bounced, flowed, echoed. They knew that water falling on the right surface could soothe the mind. So they shaped clay tiles in gentle waves, lifted the edges of the roof like a bird's wing, and let the rain become music. It is a kind of architecture that listens and responds. The temple does not keep out the rain, it invites its voice. Each drop that falls on tile or stone is part of a conversation, one you are now a part of. The sound grows slowly, patiently. What began as one drop becomes many. The garden is dappled with ripples now, and the bamboo gutters begin to sing their own quiet tune. They carry the water away with a sound like wind over a flute, soft, breathy, never hurried. Even in movement, the rain remains at rest. You lean back slightly and feel the wood behind you, smooth and cool, polished by generations of quiet hands. Above you, the roof breathes. You wonder how something so old can still feel so alive. But perhaps that is what makes it sacred. Its stillness, its service, its steady welcome to things that fall gently from the sky. As you listen, your mind begins to drift, not away, but inward. You begin to wonder why the sound of rain makes you feel so calm. What is it about water meeting surface that slows the heart, that smooths the rough edges of thought? It has to do, in part, with randomness. Unlike a ticking clock or a repetitive song, rain never falls in exactly the same way twice. Its rhythm is complex, non-repeating, a phenomenon scientists call pink noise. Not quite silence, not quite sound, not quite pattern, not quite chaos. Pink noise falls somewhere in between, a soft, organic unpredictability that the brain finds comforting. Your nervous system, tuned by evolution to watch for danger in predictable rhythms, a predator's steps, a loud, sudden sound, relaxes when it hears something like rain. It senses no threat, no intention, no urgency, just variation within. Calm. It is like listening to the ocean, or wind through pine needles, or the whisper of leaves in a forest at dusk. The roof above you knows this, not consciously, perhaps, but in design and in memory. And so, as the rain continues, your breath follows it. In, out, each inhalation matched to a distant tap of water. Each exhalation, another surrender to the way time stretches in a storm. Out in the garden, the moss glows, richer green. Tiny rivulets trace the stone steps, and somewhere, beneath a camellia leaf, a snail begins its slow spiral across a wet world. You remain still. You are the listener now. The temple roof sings above you, not in notes, but in echoes. You begin to think of all the other rooftops where rain might be falling now. On clay domes in Kyoto, on pagodas in the misty hills of Korea, on monastery tiles in the Chinese mountains, where monks once sat just as you are now, listening without needing to answer. And always the rain is slightly different, but always it is the same. You sip the last of your tea. It has gone cool, but the bitterness is pleasing now, like the earth after a storm. The rain does not stop, but softens, its rhythm gentler, more diffuse. It slides from the roof like a curtain being drawn across the sky, and just when it seems it might end, another note joins the temple's quiet music, not the sound of water on tile, but water in motion, gathering in quiet pools, beginning to flow toward the garden's edge. ... And your thoughts turn toward where the water will go next, down stone paths, across open courtyards, into the wide, listening world of rain-fed spaces. Courtyards built for listening. The temple courtyard is open to the sky, waiting like a breath. Rain pools gently where stone meets moss, and bamboo gutters sing. Architects once studied silence and storms, together crafting spaces where sound could bloom like lotus in the rain. You trace each falling drop with your resting mind. The rain has deepened now, not heavier, but more certain. A soft cadence spreads across the tiled roof, trickling down into the open courtyard where stone, moss, and water meet. You rise slowly and step out from the covered veranda, your bare feet cool against the wooden planks, and then, cooler still against the rain-dappled stone. The temple's inner garden is open to the sky, not despite the weather, but because of it. Somewhere behind you, a wind chime stirs, its copper notes brushing softly against the breeze, joining the rain in a duet so gentle, it feels as though the air itself is humming. This is no ordinary courtyard. It has been shaped over centuries with a kind of deep listening in mind. The stones beneath your feet were placed not simply for walking, but for sound, each slab set with care, some rough to slow the flow of water, others smooth to welcome reflection. Moss cushions the edges like velvet, its rich green thickened by the rain. Tiny puddles gather in shallow bowls carved into the rock, catching the silver threads of falling droplets. The air is cool, alive with movement, not of people, but of falling sky, echoing across crafted stillness. You pause beside a low basin carved from stone. Raindrops land on its surface with delicate intention. Some bounce once, then vanish. Others create concentric rings that glide outward, like thoughts that begin in silence and ripple through your mind. Above, rain slides down bamboo gutters, guided with a grace born of centuries of observation. Engineers of old, scholars, monks, builders, watched the way storms touched roofs, how water moved with gravity and light, and they sculpted space, not to resist rain, but to cradle its voice. The bamboo is split just enough to cradle a thread of water. It pours from one segment to another, a stepwise descent, each drop tapping, falling, waiting, a chain of notes flowing downward through air. There's a name for this, a kusari doi, a rain chain. Instead of enclosing water in downspouts or hiding it behind walls, these rain chains let it fall in the open air, giving it the dignity of song. The sound is not loud, but layered, a shimmering veil of water notes. It's a kind of hydrophonic design, where each droplet becomes part of a liquid melody, tuned by gravity, shaped by time. Ancient builders knew this. They knew that architecture could be more than shelter. It could be presence. It could invite the listener to pause, to breathe, to become a listener themselves. Some called these spaces ma, not empty, but full of potential, not silence, but sound in waiting. The space between notes, the breath between thoughts. You step farther into the courtyard, the softest rain misting your arms. A single maple tree stands at its center, its leaves glistening like lacquered silk. Water gathers on each leaf's edge, then drops, one by one, into a small gravel bed below. Even here, the placement is purposeful. The stone beneath the tree is coarser, so when the droplets fall, they strike with a sound slightly deeper, more muffled, like the closing of a book or the settling of a thought. You walk slowly now, each step guided not by path, but by sound. You find yourself turning toward places where the rain is strongest, or where it meets a bronze basin, or where it weaves through reed gutters overhead. And in doing so, you realize something. This courtyard isn't just listening to the rain. It's teaching you how to listen. In the stillness, your senses heighten. You hear layers you didn't notice before. A tiny drip from the far corner of the eaves. The murmur of distant water moving underground. The soft exhale of the breeze as it curls through wooden beams. This is the science of soundscape design, an art rooted in both acoustics and emotion. Sound isn't just heard, it's felt, shaped by the materials around it, by the openness of the air, by the temperature of the rain. Stone echoes, wood absorbs, moss softens, and water always seeks the most graceful path. In modern terms, we might call this psychoacoustics, the way your mind responds to certain frequencies, the way gentle randomness calms your thoughts, the way one soft echo can slow your heartbeat. You don't need any of those words. You feel it. Your breathing slows. Your thoughts soften. The world grows large, but safe. You are small within it, beneath a sheltering eave, and let the moment wash over you. The rain changes again, not stopping, but shifting. You can hear it now, striking a lantern, a gentle ping like porcelain touched by fingernail. A breeze moves across the space, and somewhere high above, the wind stirs a chime again, its tone rich and round, almost as if it's answering the rain. Time feels folded here. The soundscape wraps around you like a story told entirely in tone and air, and you begin to wonder if sound can be shaped so gently. What else might be shaped by listening? What happens when a whole space is designed not just to be seen, but to be heard, not just with ears, but with attention? The question lingers quietly as the rain continues to fall, and the water begins to gather at the garden's edge, drawn toward the next space where its voice will be heard. The science of soothing rain. What makes rain sound like comfort? Your mind explores the physics of droplets, how they splatter, splash, and soothe. You drift through clouds, touch the surface tension of puddles, and learn why your brain finds peace in a downpour. Sleep arrives. With every rhythmic patter, you lean back beneath the eaves, watching rain gather along the edge of the roof. It clings there for a moment, a silver bead trembling in pause, and then falls quietly into the waiting pool below. The sound is small, but full, like a thought gently arriving, or a memory, rising unannounced from the hush of your mind. And as the rain continues, you begin to wonder, why does it soothe you this way? There is something universal in the way the sound of rainfall settles the soul. It is not just poetic, it's physical, biological, deeply felt. Your body responds before you think. Your heart slows, your breath deepens, your muscles loosen, as if water itself were untangling tension. The answer begins with the drop itself. A raindrop is not always round, despite how it's often drawn. Up in the sky, it starts as a sphere, shaped by surface tension, a fragile skin that clings to itself as it falls. But as it drops through air, wind resistance flattens it slightly until it resembles a tiny jelly bean, or the shape of a contact lens, wider at the bottom, curved on top, trembling all the while. Thousands fall each second in different sizes and speeds. Some bounce off leaves, others explode into mist. Many, most land and disappear with sound. That sound is what calls you inward. When a raindrop strikes a surface, a tile, a leaf, a pond, your window, it creates a tiny burst of acoustic energy, not just one note, but many. The impact releases a bloom of frequencies, a microchord of nature, played again and again in soft chaos. Your brain interprets these overlapping sounds as something familiar, non-threatening, safe, a texture of sound called pink noise. Unlike the sharpness of white noise, pink noise rolls gently, favoring lower frequencies. It's richer, softer, like the bass tones of the natural world. The rain's randomness, the way it never repeats, is precisely what makes it relaxing. Your ears, attuned to rhythm and alert to threats, find comfort in this unpredictable consistency. There's no pattern to wait for, no surprise to prepare against, just the wash of variation, a tapestry of difference woven into calm. As you listen, you become aware of scale. Each surface the raindrop hits shapes the sound differently. Stone offers a click, leaves a hollow pat soil, a dull thud. Water, a silken splash. Even the size of the drop matters. Larger droplets land with bass-like softness, while finer mists create a high, dusty whisper. And when rain becomes steady, your mind begins to merge with it, a state some researchers call auditory immersion. The boundary between inner and outer sound starts to blur. You are not just hearing the rain, you are in it. There's more. Rain masks other sounds, the hum of traffic, distant voices, even your own restless thoughts. They fade beneath the gentle curtain of falling water. The noise of the world is softened, leaving behind space for stillness. It is like a blanket of hush, a sound that isn't demanding, but simply they're present, consistent, without asking anything of you. You close your eyes and in your mind rise gently above the courtyard, up into the clouds, where the rain is born. Here, the air is cold and quiet. Moisture gathers around tiny particles, dust, salt, pollen, the invisible seeds of sky water. The process is called nucleation. A single droplet clings to its particle, joins another, and grows until it's heavy enough to fall. And fall it does, through layers of warmer air, through wind and silence, until it meets the world below. As it lands, you imagine the ripple it makes, not just in the puddle, but in the story of your breath, each drop a punctuation, mark in the language of stillness. Even the brain's sleep centers seem to recognize this rhythm. Neuroscientists have found that pink noise, such as the sound of rain, can improve deep sleep. It enhances memory consolidation, slows brainwaves, and increases time spent in the restful stages of the night. Perhaps it's because rain has always been with us, long before words, before beds, before cities. Humans found shelter and slept while storms passed overhead. We were born into a world that whispered, and the rain was its first lullaby. You think of this now as droplets continue to fall around you on wood and stone, leaf and water, each sound part of a natural orchestra, a system designed not by human hands, but by gravity, tension, and time. Even the splatter patterns of raindrops follow hidden rules. Scientists have studied them with high-speed cameras, watching as each droplet lands and spreads, breaking into tiny fingers, then pulling back into a final bead of rest. It's called the crown effect, a brief, beautiful bloom of water reaching upward just after impact, too quick to see with the eye, but always there, a gesture of greeting from the rain to the earth. You picturing now millions of tiny crowns blooming and dissolvengivary second across the temple garden, each one gone as quickly as it appeared, but together forming something lasting, a presence, a pattern, a peace. The air smells richer, now petrichor, the earthy scent released when rain falls on dry ground, rises from the garden soil. It is made by oils secreted by plants during dry spells, and by geosmin, a molecule produced by bacteria when the rain arrives. It stirs these into the air, a perfume of Earth's awakening, a signal that life is returning, that nourishment is near. You breathe it in slowly, this scent of ancient stone and softened sky. Your mind floats between fact and feeling, curiosity and calm. Somewhere nearby, water gathers again, a gutter overflowing, a stream beginning to trickle. Through moss-covered channels, you follow it with your thoughts, watching the water's journey beyond the courtyard, toward misty forests and mountain paths, toward the temples built far above the clouds, where rain sings differently in the thin, cold air. Temples in the misty mountains. You ascend slowly, winding through a mountain path softened by rain. The world narrows as the mist thickens and trees vanish behind quiet veils of vapor. Each step is cushioned by moss, damp earth, and fallen needles. You are walking not just upward, but inward, into stillness, into memory, into a sky made of stone and silence above. The temple reveals itself gradually, a silhouette against the cloud, its wooden beams dark with age and weather. It sits like a thought that has waited patiently to be remembered. Sloped eaves stretch wide to catch the sky's sorrow, their edges curved like the wings of a bird mid-glide. Rain trails down them in steady rhythms, each droplet a syllable. In a slow and ancient language, you step beneath the temple gate, your breath deepening with the scent of wet cedar and incense. The sound of the rain changes here. Outside, it was scattered, playful, falling through leaves and wind. Inside the courtyard, it gathers itself, becomes more patient, more precise, a light percussion on stone and wood, orchestrated by the design of roofs, gutters, and carved angles. This is a place shaped by listening. Centuries ago, architects studied not only structure, but sound. They knew how to bend the slope of a roof to guide water just so, how to build echo into a hallway without making it loud. Some designed tiles to ring softly when struck by rain. The way a bell might murmur instead of chime. You pause beneath a red-painted beam. Rain slides down in perfect beads beside you. The courtyard breathes. A monk passes silently, his straw sandals barely whispering across the polished floor. His robe moves like mist. He does not look at you, but you feel seen, not as a guest or a stranger, but as a ripple in the same quiet pond. Around the courtyard, the temple breathes in layers. Inner corridors are dim and cool, lined with paper doors and woven tatami. Farther in, there are meditation rooms where the rain is the only visitor. Farther still, a library of scrolls whose ink has held steady through earthquakes and generations. The monks do not worship the rain, but they understand it the way one understands a friend who never explains themselves. You find a dry bench beneath a cedar awning. The rain falls inches from your feet, caught and slowed by the carved wooden edge above. Here, you can hear the difference in every surface it touches. Water landing in a bamboo gutter sounds round and hollow, like a distant drum. Rain tapping the stone basin beside you is higher, faster, like a whispered chant. The dripping from a curled eave arrives like a heartbeat, patient even. Sure. High mountain temples often sit where clouds rest. Their builders chose these elevations not just for remoteness, but for rhythm, the way storms arrive with calm, the way wind carries scent before sound, and the way snow sometimes falls before light. In summer, thunder visits the peaks with grand ceremony. In spring, the rain is softer, more forgiving, and in autumn, it is like a farewell, each drop a petal saying goodbye. You lean your head back and close your eyes. Behind your eyelids, the rain becomes a pattern. There's a science here, quiet but precise. Rainfall in mountains behaves differently than in valleys. The air is thinner, cooler, less able to hold moisture, so clouds let go more easily. As rain falls, it strikes colder stones, echoes off sharper cliffs, and in this elevation, sound travels differently. It doesn't bounce. It floats, layering upon itself like silk. The monks once studied these properties without instruments. Their barometers were bones and breath. They listened to rain the way astronomers read stars. Not for prediction, but for peace. A heavier rainfall might call for chanting indoors. A gentler one might invite walking meditations in the cloisters. The temple became an instrument tuned by weather, and the monks its quiet musicians. Outside, the mountains are disappearing again into fog. You feel the world narrowing once more, but this time not with distance, with presence. You are fully here, with the cedar beside you, with the water at your feet, with the sky now closer than it has ever felt before. There is something in the air to not just moisture, but memory. Rainwater at this height carries traces of what it touched on the way down. Pine needles, moss, the bark of old trees, tiny particles of lichen and airborne minerals. When you breathe, you are not just inhaling weather, you are sharing the journey of 1,000 drops, each one a traveler with its own small story. A molecular pilgrimage. Some temples collect rain intentionally with carved basins or small reservoirs lined with lotus. The water is sometimes used for tea, sometimes for ritual, sometimes simply watched. You remember reading once that rainwater, when caught gently, has a slightly different structure than tap or river water. Some scientists believe the shape of water molecules changes with movement, that turbulence can tear bonds, and stillness can heal them, whether true or not. You feel it now, a kind of softened order. The rain is not falling, it is arriving, as if it were invited. You watch it flow along the edge of the roof and drop, one by one, into a perfectly placed stone bowl. Below, the bowl never overflows. The ground around it stays dry. It is balance made visible, not control, just invitation, accommodation. and flow. Your thoughts slow. You begin to feel like the temple itself, built not to block the storm, but to welcome it. Made of wood and stillness and old understandings, a listening place, a place that remembers what the world forgets in haste. Somewhere deeper in the temple, a bell rings once low, round, and long. It moves through you like a wave through still water, a sound too deep to wake you, a sound made to guide you somewhere deeper still. You listen again to the rain, not with your ears this time, but with your breath. And as the sky sighs its song across the curved eaves, you wonder gently what stories the water carries once it leaves the roof and where it might flow next. Once it disappears into the stone, perhaps in the next chapter, you'll follow the rain beyond the courtyard, into the forests that drink the clouds and the leaves that whisper back. Stories the rain once told. Rain has always carried stories, from mythic floods to love letters, written on wet scrolls. You hear the thunderclouds of ancient poems and follow the scent of petrichor through folklore until even memory begins to drip in rhythm. The rain continues, soft, rhythmic, unhurried. It's no longer just weather. It has become a presence, an ancient voice, whispering through the eaves and leaves, reminding you that every drop carries more than moisture. It carries memory. You rest in the shelter of the temple wall, listening not only with your ears, but with your imagination wide open. Long before meteorology was a science, rain was a character in our stories, sometimes a healer, sometimes a curse. In one legend, the sky weeps when a mountain goddess grieves, and the rivers swell with her sorrow in another. Rain is the laughter of spirits, tickling rooftops and blessing rice fields. You think of the flood myths, so many from so far. In Mesopotamia, Utnapishtim loads a boat with life. In India, Manu is warmed by a fish. In the Andes, twin children climb to the heaven stone, escape the rising tides. Rain in these stories is more than water. It is rebirth, cleansing, a reckoning wrapped in thunder. You close your eyes and hear the rain as it might have sounded in ancient cities, tapping on terracotta, splashing in clay jars beside doorways, running down painted walls like ink escaping a brush dot in old Japan. Poems were folded into umbrellas hidden beneath the fabric, waiting to be soaked. Lovers would write their longing in delicate brushstrokes, so when it rained, the paper bled, and hearts were revealed in blurred characters inlaid. The sky could read. You wonder how many secrets the rain has washed away, how many songs it carried through the mouths of travelers and farmers, through the corridors of stone monasteries and across the sails of wooden ships. There's a word for the scent after rain, petric, or it comes from the Greek, petra, meaning stone, and ichor, the blood of the gods, a divine smell rising from earth's skin when water touches dry soil and wakes it. You breathe it in, now deep.com, ancient. This aroma, scientists found, is born from oils secreted by plants during dry spells, soaked into the ground until released again by rain. Bacteria called actonomyces break down organic matter in the soil, and when disturbed by water, they release geosmin, a fragrant molecular noses detect in minuscule amounts. This is the language of scent, a story the ground tells the sky when the drought finally ends. It's no wonder poets heard stories in rain. Its rhythm, its touch, its smell, all invite reflection, softness, and listening. In some cultures, people would leave vessels outside to catch the first rains of the season, not just to drink or use, but to preserve a feeling, the taste of a beginning. You imagine a monk once placing an open scroll beneath the rain, not to ruin it, but to surrender to time, letting the words fade in their own season, like flowers pressed in a book, a form of gentle erasure, letting go as part of remembering. Raindrops tap a steady rhythm against the tiles above, and suddenly it feels like a lullaby you once knew, as if the rain remembers a story your dreams have forgotten. There's science behind that comfort. To dot, your brain recognizes patterns in sound. Rain's soft randomness, called pink noise, spreads across all frequencies but with more energy in the lower ones. This makes it less harsh than white noise, more like a living background, gentle, predictable unpredictability. Pink noise helps the brain relax. It masks jarring sounds, supports deeper sleep, and encourages memory consolidation. So, when the rain sings to you, it's not just nostalgia or metaphor, it's biology and rhythm, woven into neurons and earbone sand, the inner hush that opens before dreams arrive. Even thunder, in its distant rumble, has inspired awe and reverence. Some ancient tribes believed it was the drumbeat of gods, or the sound of giants walking on clouds. But we now know thunder begins with lightning, sudden superheating of air that expands faster than sound itself. A ripple, a roar, a rolling signature of energy. It is the punctuation of storms, sharp, brief, unforgettable. You think of the stories still unfolding in the data of today's rains. Smart sensors track raindrop shapes. Radars map the layers of cloud density. Hydrologists measure acidity, tracking pollution and climate change, rainfall at a time. But science and story are not rivals. They are two streams feeding the same river. Even now, you can let both hold you, one hand resting in myth, the other in molecule. The rain has always spoken in both languages. It trickles through lullabies and lab reports, splashes in ancient verse and modern journals. Its rhythm constant, its meanings ever deepening. You feel your breath align with it now, in and out, rise and fall, drop by drop, like ink into water. Your thoughts grow quiet again, sinking like pebbles through a pond of stories. You don't need to catch every one. They LLB here the next time it rains. And as the temple roof continues its quiet symphony, you wonder what stories the wind might carry next, what secret shapes it sketches through trees and distant mountains. Last lines, perhaps, as the breeze gathers its breath. You'll follow it to the forests beyond the temple, to listen not just to water, but to the soft language of leaves in motion. the last drop before morning. Night deepens. The rain slows to a breath. You sit beside a quiet lantern, watching mist rise from stone in the silence between raindrops. Your dreams begin to wander into sacred chambers, bamboo forests, and sleeping skies. The storm has passed, but the peace remains. The temple roof, still glistens, moonlight, softened by drifting cloud, slips across its curved eaves. You sit beneath the shelter of an old overhang, the air still damp, still scented. A single drop lingers at the edge of a carved wooden beam. It quivers, waits, and then falls, slow as thought. You don't hear it hit the ground, but you feel the moment it leaves, a quiet goodbye. The storm has moved on, though not entirely. The rain has dwindled to something almost invisible, a hush suspended in air. Mist curls through the courtyards like incense, rising from flagstones, still warm from day dawn. Everything glows, faintly, everything breathes. This is the hour when water forgets how to fall. It clings to leaves, beads on bamboo stalks, pools in lotus bowls. The rhythm that rocked the temple all night long, the steady tap, tap, tapping of sky meeting earth, has faded now. There is only silence between the drops, and even silence has a shape here. You inhale. The petrichor is faint now, more memory than presence. That earthy perfume of rain meeting dry soil has been absorbed into moss and stone. Scientists say petrichor is made from oils in plants and bacteria in the ground, a complex chemistry that your nose reads like poetry. But you don't need the formula to feel what it means. The scent lingers like the last line of a poem, one you're not ready to end. Bell chimes softly in a distant chamber. Its note is so gentle you wonder if it came from inside you in this hush. Everything echoes, even your thoughts drift like sound across still water. Rain doesn't simply fall, it accumulates, gathers, pools, not just on the earth, but in the folds of time. Each drop carries with it the memory of sky and cloud, of evaporation and return. The water that touched your cheek tonight may have once been part of a glacier or a tear shed. Centuries ago, every droplet is a traveler, every puddle a resting place above you. Thin clouds pass like silk across the stars. Astronomers once named these high, feathery clouds cirrus, from the Latin word for lock of hair. They live at the edge of space, where the air is cold and dry. And yet even there, water waits. Even there, moisture curls and twists, sculpted by wind. The monks of this temple believe the rain listens, that it remembers what it touches. They sweep the wooden floors before a storm, not to avoid mess, but to offer the rain a clean page, to let each drop write its own arrival. You think of this as you watch rivulets curve gently across stone. Their paths are not random. They follow grooves made by generations of footsteps, shaped by habit and time. Even water respects the memory of movement. You close your eyes, and suddenly the night deepens, not darker, just more present. The kind of stillness that doesn't ask for silence, but holds it like a gift. This is the hour when dreams begin. Somewhere, a bamboo stalk creaks, a soft crackle, then a sigh. As moisture shifts within its green chambers, bamboo is hollow, a perfect vessel for sound. Rain echoes differently here, deeper, wider, as if the world itself is listening. You remember learning how sound travels through water faster than in air, because water molecules are closer, more connected, more responsive. It's as if the rain carries its own conversations underground, through roots and rivers, into caves and seashells. And when that final drop fell from the roof, the one you watched without hearing, it may have joined that subterranean story, a single note in an ancient, ongoing song. The temple walls are damp with wisdom. They've stood through centuries of rain. Their wood swells, breathes with the weather. Scientists call this hygroscopic behavior, materials that respond to moisture in the air. But in a temple, it feels more like grace, like listening. You lean back against a pillar, and the coolness seeps gently through. Your robe, not cold, just real. A reminder that you are here in this night, in this rain, in this breath, outside the gates. The forest hushes too. The birds have tucked their heads beneath their wings. The frogs have stilled their songs. Even the crickets seem to whisper now, their calls softened by dew. Everything waits, not for something to happen, but for what has happened to settle. You've learned tonight that rain is more than weather. It's a rhythm, a reminder, a return. And now, as the clouds grow thin and the first suggestion of light touches the sky's edge, you feel something inside you shift. The night has wrung you like a cloth. The rain has softened your edges. What remains is quieter, wider, and ready, because even as this chapter closes, as the last drop meets the moss and the lantern's flame grows pale, there is one last wonder still waiting in the mist. Where does water go when it leaves the sky? And how does it learn to rise again? The rain is slowing now. The story lingers in the wood and wind. Sleep well, dreamer, and when the rain returns, so too will the temple, waiting for you.